everyone, and welcome to another edition of my Become Unstoppable series. And as usual, I have an amazing guest for you who will share his unstoppable story. But for those who don't know me, my name is Julie Fitzpatrick, and I am an award-winning therapist and coach and the founder of Milliside Therapy and Coaching. And I support business owners and professionals who are really stressed and overwhelmed, and I help free them from that so that they can become truly unstoppable. So let's see if we can get Kalvin up for us. Here he is.
Sorry, in Dubai they block certain video apps from working, so I just had to do something to connect.
I was threatening to start singing, but my son's listening to this and he said, please don't. But you turned up just at the right time.
Oh, I just had a little bit of a sweat coming on then, trying to connect. But yeah, glad to be on.
Trust me, I did as well. I was trying to think, what can I say? So sorry about that, everyone. We are here. Kalvin is here. He's in the building now. But as he said, he's in Dubai at the moment, so we do have to acknowledge that there could be technology issues. But how cool though, right? We're not even in the same continent and we are talking like this. How amazing. So thank you for joining me. Would you like to start off by introducing yourself to the lovely audience that's watching?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Kalvin Morris. I've been a business owner for 22 years. Worked, or should I say, owned businesses in various sectors. Very much been somebody who's explored, different industries and understood many sectors, from recruitment to events, more tech-based business like videography and live streaming, and a bunch of other stuff as well. And just absolutely love business, love the networks, meeting people, and everything that goes with it.
Just as well being a business owner, right? Because that's quite paramount, isn't it? Which is
kind
not,
of.
Yeah, it's not always ideal for some people who are not into doing that. But it's one of those things that when you suddenly get thrust into the business world, that is all these new things that you need to learn and become a master at, which caught me by surprise, I must admit. Yeah. After spending 35 years in the corporate world, where I didn't have to do too much that. I suppose there's elements of it, but not in the same way. Okay, so before we get into the interview though, I have to ask my very famous question. So Kalvin, what does being unstoppable mean to you?
Well, it means quite a lot. So, obviously being a family man, and talking about business and success, my most recent venture, which I guess we'll talk about a little bit today, is called Obsessed to Success. And that pretty much sums it up, really. There's no other choice. You can't start something and not kind of follow through on it. You can't give up. You can't. That's just not an option for me, right? It's just not an option for me as a person, a family person, as a business owner, and being unstoppable is just in my DNA. And I just think that I don't know the exact statistics, but it's something like over 90% of UK businesses fail, within their first 2 years. And just going, just sort of kicking off with what you just said. Sometimes people don't understand the ins and outs of a business and understand all the different sections, the marketing, the finance, the credit control, the sales, the delivery, the execution, being the nice guy or the nice girl all the time, but then managing staff and all those things that go with it. And it's really tough. And, for me, I have no choice but to be successful and to be unstoppable, because business is a journey, and it's not a 1 year thing or a 2 or a 5 year thing, right? I've been doing 22 years what I've been doing. It's been insanely rewarding, but it's been so tough as well. And there's times, it doesn't matter who you are and how successful you are, there's times when you'll want to give up. You think, you wake up some days and you think, what am I doing? Why am I doing this to myself? And then, you push through, and then you go, oh, I know why I'm doing this now, right? Whatever it is that kind of floats your boat, cars, house, holidays, family time, whatever it might be. but yeah, that's kind of the things that drive me and what makes me feel unstoppable and why I'm unstoppable. And sometimes you have to pivot, right? I'm out here in Dubai. There's a reason or reasons that I'm doing that, with the economy in the UK and things like that. And yeah, look, it's not a choice, it's a lifestyle to me. I'll continue to push. I want a good life for me, my family, with my wife and my kids, and having nice things. And I think that it's important that if you're going to go into business or if you run a business, that you have to have that mindset that I'm unstoppable. As I said, the new venture is called Obsessed to Success. And somebody said to me, "Is it not obsessed until success?" I was, "No, it's two, because I'm not going to stop until I'm successful, if that makes sense." It's obsessed to success, and that hopefully kind of sums that up, really.
Really good, yeah. And there's quite a few things that have dropped into my head then, which obviously I'll probably forget most of them, but one of them was about how when people let me say how I felt, right? I spent 35 years working in the corporate world until I was absolutely done. So at 52, I was like, I did get made redundant, which gave me the kick up the arse that I really needed. Obviously, didn't realise that at the time, but 5 minutes later, I worked that one out. But a lot of people go into business with the idea that, you've got your purpose, maybe you found your purpose and passion, or you want to do something that's worthwhile or something like that. That was my thing, finding my purpose and passion. And I didn't really know what it was, although over time I realised it was about helping people, because I trained as a counsellor years ago, but never went all in on it, right? But we get caught up, I think, in we want to find our purpose and passion, and we go into business with our blinkers on, thinking that, oh, that's okay, I can have work-life balance, I can do this, I can do it. But actually, it's further from the truth, isn't it? In the beginning,
Yeah, absolutely,
it's
absolutely. Yeah, and look, and it's and I think you're right. Your first depends how successful your company is, but that's also the thing that then ties you up more as well. I think the first 5 years of your business is expect to do double the hours for none of the pay, because you're reinvesting and growing. And then Sarah, one of the Dragons or Dragons Den that's involved with Adam Stott. One of the events that she was at, she said a couple of things, and she said the first one was that you're not truly successful in your business until you've made yourself redundant. And what that means is not losing your job, but having people running your business for you who are advising you whilst you're directing them. That's really, really important. And then the other thing was, what's the purpose? So when I get involved in a new business or a new business venture, which is what I'm doing out here in Dubai, is I sit with the business owner and say, why did you start the business? Why are you running the business? What's going to happen in the next 5 years, the next 10 years? What's the goal here? Are you going to think about exiting this company? Or are you going to keep running it forever? And people have different views, right?
And they probably haven't given those questions a thought, have they, a lot of the time?
Nearly always not, because you started, I guess initially it's money, want more money, want a lifestyle. You've got to grow into that, and it takes years to do that. So it's really important that people can take that step back. Or actually at the beginning, a good bit of advice would be to reverse engineer. So what's the end goal? How much money do I want to earn a year, a month? What car do I want to drive? Whatever it is that triggers you positively, and then that's it, really. It's a lot of people just don't consider these things, and it's the first thing you need to reverse engineer. What's the end goal, and then work your way backwards all the way to the start, and whatever it is you're going to do, product or service or otherwise.
And I think I'm glad in a way that I didn't know what was coming, because it might have put me off, and I'm so glad I went on the journey and am on the journey. But this is when, investing in your self-development comes into play, isn't it? So we actually met at a business training with, as you mentioned, Adam Stott, Big Business Events.
Yes.
And like you, probably part of other groups as well. I certainly am. I'm part of the therapy training group of Rise and Shine Academy. I'm always learning. So I've gone down two routes because I'm a therapist and coach. When I embarked on this second phase, going out on a business owner, I started again. I started retraining again and did, more and more qualifications to get the knowledge up for myself, but also you go through the process of going through some stuff, your own stuff. But I've continued that journey, and I did that alongside Adam and some other groups as well. So without them, all of them, I wouldn't be in a position where I am now, because I would have been floundering and I might have even given up already. And what do you think about that?
So, look, I've run my longest business for 22 years. I'm 41. So it's been nearly all of my working adult life, right? So I've had personal coaching for coming up for 5 years, which if we do the maths, that means I was running a business for 17 years without any coaching. And I guess, well, I don't say guess, unfortunate, we worked hard and deserve what we got, right? We were doing 20-hour days for years, but I can see now that we could have done it a better way. So we were self-taught and, fortunately had a good enough product that was resellable every day to be able to grow that business. I genuinely think what we achieved in 17 years, I could achieve in a company within a year now because of what I've learned, but because of coaching and, being in that room with 100 other business owners who get you and understand you and are having the same pain as you. And actually somebody's just saying, don't worry, you got this. This is all right. All right, don't worry, you're going to be okay. And you always come away feeling really like empowered and like having a vision and everything else that goes with it. And it's, the famous saying is it's lonely at the top, right? If you've got no one, if you're running a business and the only director owner, you don't have somebody else to bounce off of. If you're with somebody else in your business, at least there's a few of you. And this is what I do now is I actually, I'm starting to invest in other companies, being a minority shareholder, but going in and saying, we do this, this, and this, and this is how the business is going to go. And you get to work with other people, you get them excited about the businesses, and actually you can change people's lives by doing that, So I'm always happy to give somebody an hour of my time for free and help them, on their businesses, because, as I say, it's lonely at the top if you're on your own. It's so vital to invest in yourself.
Absolutely, and because you're not emotionally attached to that business as well, you can see it with new eyes, can't you? When you're in your own business, sometimes it can be difficult to see the wood for the trees, in that old saying that you're working in your business and not on your business, and that can be so true, can't it?
Absolutely. So I had a conversation with somebody this week, looking at their business, and he said, great business, it was doing really well, and then it wasn't doing well. And I said, what happened? And he said, well, I was spending loads of money on paid ads, and so I stopped. And I used to ring old customers back, but I stopped. So why did you stop? We're spending too much money on paid ads. I said, what happened when you stopped paying paid ads? Well, we stopped getting business. So why didn't you switch it back on again?
Yeah.
I don't know. So it's the thought that you're spending money, not that money is being invested in the business to regenerate new sales and product and whatever else.
And that's the biggest issue, I think, is the mindset, isn't it? With anything in life, but in particular, in a business. And I think when you go from, someone like me who I've worked in the corporate world, so pretty much told what to do, right? I mean, I was probably a little bit of a rebel most of the time, but I didn't have to go out selling myself in the same sense. Although actually, you do, but I probably didn't, because my limiting beliefs that I now know were that I was average and I should keep myself small and I shouldn't be visible. So at work, although I did all right, I'd never really pushed myself, or I wasn't the one that went, put me up for promotion, I want this, I'm driving like that. I just done a good job, delivered projects on time, in budget, just done the, what I needed to do, because that way I wasn't really, I wasn't excellent, I wasn't bad, but you know, I was just consistent, and
Yeah.
you don't get noticed for that, right?
Mm.
And I learned when I was doing my self-development and I uncovered my limiting belief that I wasn't good enough. That's when I started my unstoppable journey, because then I was like, well, bugger this then. I'm going to start doing things, and I'm going to start saying yes to things and doing this. I mean, I didn't even have an Instagram account until a couple of years ago. Didn't even know what it
Yeah.
was, you know.
Mhm.
But the point is, you need to uncover those limiting beliefs, because your conscious mind will always win. So it doesn't matter what you consciously think. You can go out there doing your affirmations all day long, but if your limiting belief is opposite, it's going to win every time, and you're just going to keep going backwards. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and I think in business, you've got to switch on that mindset, because you're whether it's, as you say, through like money mindset. That's one of the biggest, I don't want to say killers because that sounds a bit dramatic, doesn't it? But killers
Well,
of business, if you like, it is that money mindset.
of course, yeah. And look, it's so I was thinking about this, right? Is that my core business at the beginning of this year was doing extremely well. I had a car a particular car that I've been wanting, kind of like my dream car, if you like. I've wanted since I was a kid, or since they first came out. And I had the opportunity to get that car, which I got. Then later this year, same year, business started getting a bit tough, and just have to go, right. Just going to pull back a little bit now. You know, not book so many holidays for a sec. You know, whatever it is, pull back a little bit and all that kind of stuff. And rather than be devastated, you know, I'm going to get rid of this car now, I just like tick it off the list. I've done it. But actually, I was thinking, well, I'm spending money on a bit of finance every month for that car. What if I reinvest that instead? So because any car is a dead weight, right?
Mm,
So you know, nearly everybody finances cars as well, right?
mm,
It's like a dead asset, yeah. So it might be, you know, the nicest car in the world, or it might be, if your affordability is, I can just afford a car to get around.
mm,
You know, you can go and buy cars from like, I don't know, 600 quid, right? That would get you from A to B for a year.
mm,
But it's that mindset of always wanting more, and that's okay while you're being successful.
mm.
But let's say you were spending £500 or £700 or £300, whatever it is, right, on a car finance, just as one example. Imagine investing that into yourself with some training or some coaching,
Mm,
or investing it in some ebooks about how do I run a business, or
mm.
you know, there's that series for dummies, like Marketing for Dummies
Yeah,
books, right? You
yeah.
them, yeah, yeah. What's one of those? 10 quid, right? Imagine spending, you know, instead of going to get a Big Mac and some chips, getting a book like that, right?
Yeah,
Whatever it is, right?
exactly. Yeah.
Because where is that money better spent? And if
Mm,
spent better on yourself and on your business and your development.
mm,
Once you can get that mindset, it kind of all falls into place, because, you know, one of the biggest bits of advice I was ever given is you can't buy your time back. You
no.
can't buy your health. Yeah, but you can
Mm,
always make more money. Always. Okay, even if you're in a 9 to 5 job, right? You spend your wages at the end of the month. What do? You work again, you earn more, right? If you're running a business, it might not work out straight away. You might waste some money on paid ads, or, you know,
mm.
marketing, or a website, and then realize you need to rebuild it.
Yeah.
Whatever, right? But you can always earn more money, and if you can earn more money, you can invest some, and if you can invest some,
Mm,
then you can be successful. You know, and
yeah.
and you mentioned earlier as well. You said about you know, and being in a niche or finding your niche, whatever that might be. And sometimes you start this journey and you end up in a completely different place.
Mm,
You
yeah,
know, you end up in completely
absolutely.
different places, different industries as well. And sometimes you'll find things that you really like that you didn't even consider at the beginning.
Yeah, and that is so true, because when I started, I mean, to be honest, when I started, I didn't even know I needed a niche. What's a niche? You know, I started with that. I just want to help people. I want to transform their lives. And then it was like, oh, where are they then? What do you mean I've got to go on social media? What do you mean I've got to do this? What do you mean I've got to do that? I thought once I was qualified, they would just come to me, and
Yeah,
they didn't. Funny enough, and it was
but you
like,
know. You know, when you're doing sales, you know, quote, I'm doing sales. So you get a phone, you sit on your desk and you look at the phone. Nothing happens. And then you procrastinate and go, where are my clients? Nothing happens.
Yeah.
And you don't pick up the phone, you don't start using direct message on social media. Nothing happens. And then you think, my business is terrible because nothing happens. But what you need to do is get out your own head, stop being worried about a call that means nothing, pick up the phone, make a call, jump on social media, send a direct message, approach somebody, jump on a Zoom, whatever it might be. And the more conversations you have, guess what? At some point, somebody will go, I'm interested in your product.
Yeah.
That first, second, third person might not buy the product, but then the fourth one might.
Yeah.
And then the fifth one, right? And suddenly you've got a business.
And talking about niches and that, when I first started knowing that I needed to have a niche, it was like, well, what would be my niche then? And I thought, well, okay, well, you kind of model it a little bit on yourself, don't you, or what you know. So then I did like women in the prime of their lives, and that was kind of when my unstoppable thing came about. But over time, because I've been as I got more clients, I noticed that actually a lot of them were business owners. Some of them are still professionals, men and women. And then I took my finger off the pulse actually, and I kind of got a bit distracted with the old niche, and then things kind of got a little bit, I'm not having any conversations at all now. So I've had to kind of get myself back on. But where I am now, because I'm with loads of business owners all the time, it made sense to have business owners, but there's also that professional side of me that I want to still follow. So where I am right at this minute is I'm creating a program right now for female business owners and professionals who are either stuck in their professional job and don't know how to get out of it, or want to do something and find their purpose and passion, or they are in their business but in the early stages of the business and finding it really hard, because the key around everybody I work with is stress and overwhelm. So everything I do now starts off with the stress and overwhelm, and that's what the program's going to be. It's going to be break through that stress, you know, because until we learn that, and we learn that we can't be stressed because stress is a killer, we're not going to go anywhere. So I teach them all the basics about how to breathe and learn how to release from their body, which, in all honesty, I didn't even know what all that was until recently. And even now, I'm still learning. I'm still on that journey. And I love it now, because I'm like, for once in my life, I'm getting out of my head. And I think a lot of business owners and professionals are in here all the time, aren't they? Just that do, got no time, haven't got time for me. But what happens when you don't have time for you? Then you don't have time to look after yourself, but also you don't have time to be present in your business, to start using your imagination, to start really thinking about where's this business going. And that will be where you're speaking to them people now, that you're asking them those questions almost for the first time.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I remember years ago, I went through a little series of like having panic attacks and stuff. And what I was doing like 20-hour days. I was like grinding in the office. And I mean, when we started our recruitment company, I was like up at 5, take some staff to work, go to the office, work, close the office at lunch, take some staff to work, come back, work. I'd work till 7 or 8, go at 8 p.m, go and pick up some staff, take them to and from work. Then I'd be on call in the evening. I'd get calls during the middle of the night. I was doing it day after day after day. And, I started getting like horrible panic attacks and all kinds of things, and didn't know what it was, and anyone who's ever had a proper panic attack, man, horrible. Like pins and needles in your arms, sensations like you can't breathe. Head going dizzy, like feeling like you're gonna pass out. And it's overdoing it. It's your body saying, "Give me a break." And you said earlier, stress is a killer, and people don't realise that. But there are ways to, they say Rome wasn't built in a day. There's another good old classic saying, and it's true, right? Is your mind's not on it past 8, 9, 10 hours a day max. And people will argue, but I'm achieving. But you put yourself in an early grave though. But then it comes to the balance, doesn't it, right? And or people will be like, oh, I can't run a business because I've got to earn money to pay my bills. Okay, you know what I'm going to say. So how many hours of Netflix do you watch a day?
Yeah.
Right. You know, if you start work at 8 and you wake up at 7, why can't you wake up at 5 and do 2 hours on a business in the morning? So it is achievable. I spoke to
Yeah.
another guy this week, and he's got fantastic ideas, but he said to me, I haven't got any money. So I said, right. So I gave him a strategy on direct message outreaching on social media. That was on Sunday. I said, I'm going to hold you accountable. I said, so I gave him a strategy of how to reach out to 100 people a day. I said, I'm going to phone you Wednesday. I phoned in today. I said, how many messages have you sent? He said, 300. I said, good. I'll do another 100 for the next, and you've done a 700 in a week. End of the month, you've reached out to 2,800 people. I said, I'll literally eat my shoe if not one of them replies to you. They will, because they will, you know, and people don't understand that. You can start a business without spending a penny if you've got the right strategies in place, right? It's not easy, you know, but just getting back to subject, mindset and control and, you know, everything else. I did notice that my wife jumped on live a little while ago. I'm not sure if she's still on it, but she,
Hello.
but you know, she's like, she kind of holds me accountable a little bit, right? So my 7-year-old and my wife will video call me at 4:40 and go, you got 20 minutes left. And that's great, right? Because it reminds me, but that's what's important. What's the point in doing it? You know,
Yeah.
why? And then I do go, oh, I've got 20 minutes, you know, I've got to do this and that. But 5 o'clock, you know, I'll go, tools down, I'm going. You know, turn the light off in the office, I'm in the car. And I'm home by 5, latest at 5:30 every single day.
Yeah.
You know?
Boundaries are really important, aren't they? And I'm not always guilty. I'm guilty sometimes of not following those. But
Yeah.
funny enough, yesterday I had quite a long day because I had training that didn't finish till 9:30 last night, and I was exhausted. And I got up this morning, and I still felt a bit, but I still got up early, and I did my exercise, and I did my meditation. But actually, before I did that, actually, got ready for this as well, doing all the posts and stuff. Then I went and did that. And by the time I did that, I kind of felt so much better. And I felt a bit overwhelmed last night from this training that I was doing. And then I just took a little bit more time. I had another training session, funny enough, but it was all about manifestation and things like that. So it was like perfect for me right at that moment.
Yeah.
And even when I was just on that, where we were just going through a process, I was just like, got it. And a couple of things just like clicked into place. And I'm like, right, that's what I need to do. But if you're go, do, you're not giving yourself the chance to do that. One of the webinars that I run regularly now is all about the power of your imagination. And it's about your imagination is the most powerful tool that we have. And you mentioned it earlier about the visualization and things like that. And it's so true, because if you take that time out to meditate, or just, even if you're not meditating, but just to be present and start visualizing what you want your life to look like, then you can start that process going with your subconscious mind. But you do have to be aligned to your true beliefs though. And that's why they don't always work. When we say we want something, like you can do affirmations all day long, but if, you know, like I'm amazing, I'm wonderful, but if your belief is that, you know, you think you're not worthy, then that's why they don't always work. But you need to get yourself in line so that you can start manifesting all day long. And we can do that passively or actively, can't we?
Absolutely. I remember, you're just like jogging memories now, but I remember years ago, and we, you know, business was doing well. We had a whole office team of drivers, transporting staff to and from work, whole, you know, logistics that we'd set up. And I used to be two different people. So it used to be me, the real me at home when I was out, you know, obviously younger, going out with my friends and, you know, going to parties and stuff. And then I'd go to work and like put a face on. I'd like think about how I spoke to people and the words that I used, because I wanted them to see me in a certain way. Mainly around me being the boss, and I wasn't unfriendly, but I was trying to be a boss and not be so involved in their lives, if that makes sense. And then I realised, hang on, when you know, I can't remember when, but then I just started thinking, if I look after people and understand them and their pain points and what their lives are like, you're going to get more out of them when they work for you, but you're going to deliver more for them as well. And now what I do is I say to everybody, it's almost like one of my little sayings is I always recruit people half on experience and half on attitude. I've got to be able to get on with you and have a laugh with you, and have a sense of humour that like sort of matches, because then you're going to work better as a team, and you're going to get more out of people. And if you understand, that Dave who works for you's got kids, and his wife might be ill, but you've never asked, you don't know, right? So somebody might be snappy in the office, but what's going on? Yeah, absolutely, and it's just such a better like life, in terms of mindset, such a better like environment in terms of the working environments when you behave like that. So yeah, it's really important.
And they feel that you actually care about them as well. I mean, it is a fine line, isn't it? That you don't want to go completely down a rabbit hole, because
I used to think that, but look, at the end of the day, everyone's human. And you've got to understand that everyone's got their own lives, and I noticed that when I started recruiting in that way, and literally being completely open, that's one of the first things I say to people. I say, don't join us if you don't like it, if you don't love the business, if you don't love what we do as a service. It's not your business. You don't have to stay here till midnight. That's not your problem, right? If there's a problem, that's my problem. But people should work in a place they absolutely love, because of the people they're working with, as well as enjoying the job,
Yeah, absolutely, 100% agree. Yeah, I've done many in interviewing in my time as well, and sometimes, because you can teach people how to do a job and you can train them, but you can't make them into the personality wise, can you? They are who they are. They can change maybe, but you can't bring someone in. The same with a relationship. You can't meet someone and go, oh, they're not quite what I want, but I can make them into what I want. It doesn't work like that. The only person you can work on is yourself. You can't control anyone else. You can only control your own mind. And once we get our heads around that, and we know that we're in control of it, and we have to take responsibility for what actions we take or don't take, and don't blame everybody else. Once you start taking on responsibility and make the changes that you need, then you can do whatever you want to do, right? You can become as you want to be and become unstoppable.
Yeah, become unstoppable. Yeah, absolutely. And I don't feel now anything. If there's a program, isn't there? Like Secret Millionaire, those types of programs where they get someone ultra successful, and then they like dump them in a city where they've never been. They're not allowed a mobile phone, and they give them £1 or £10 or maybe nothing, right? And then they have to go and do stuff. And there was a program like that recently. This guy in America, and they dumped him in the middle of nowhere, and he went and he went and volunteered in the soup kitchen so he could get something to eat. Then he slept on the streets, and then figured out a way to make some commission-only work, and this and that and the other. And this journey, this guy took over something like 90 days, and I think he had to make £1 million, $1 million. But he did it because what people can't take, or should I say, if you get into money troubles, you lose your house, I don't know, anything like that, what people can't take away from you is what you know and the knowledge that you've gained. So just going back to the investing in yourself part, right? A £10 book or £100,000 course, and everything in between. Once you have that knowledge, you can rinse and repeat again. I, over the years, have taught myself how to make money, and coming over to Dubai in a way is like starting again, because go back a year, I don't really know anyone in Dubai.
How did the Dubai thing happening?
So a long story short is that UK business, UK government, hikes in taxes, living conditions in terms of the cost of living in the UK, like anyone in the UK is feeling that. Our winters are pretty rubbish as well. And I've always thought I'll live somewhere a bit sunnier at some point. I thought that was Florida, looked into it, it wasn't. Been to Dubai a few times on holidays. And the benefits for business owners over here are just crazy. So I set about, it was August 2022. So in August 2022, I didn't know anyone here. Now I've got a visa, I've got a company, I'm about to set up another company, I'm just investing in 3 companies.
Wow.
And then people might go, you've probably got loads of money. You know, it's not necessarily the case, right? I've done all right for myself, you know. I haven't got a million in one ear and a million in the other to go and buy stuff with, right? I'm comfortable, but what I've done is pivot. I've gone, okay, things in the UK are unstable in the current industries I'm working in. What do I know? What skills do I have? And what skills I do have is finding businesses that just need that next boost or scaling and getting involved in those businesses.
Amazing.
And that's what I'm doing now. And, you know, there's a lot of exciting projects here, the industries. I would say that Dubai is what the UK used to be 15, 20 years ago. Full of opportunity, loads of good people. And what I mean by that, not good people, but I mean people who are expanding, they believe in themselves and they have this mindset. And the government here don't charge much tax. I mean, the zero income tax, right? You know, there's not, how do you beat that anywhere else in the world? You don't, do you? So zero income tax, VAT is 5%, not 20%. And when an industry booms here, the government get behind the industry and reduce the taxes so the industry can boom. And when you look at that and, you know, the sheer amount of people that are moving here, opportunities are crazy. So things got quite tough with business in the UK. And I thought, right, you know, interest rates going up. My mortgage, like, probably added a third of what I was paying in interest when I had to renew, whilst paying super high taxes. And I just thought, this ain't for me. I'm not giving the government more of my company than I'm having, and I'm not doing it. And so I just thought, right, and it's back to mindset. What do I do? So last August 2022, we came over. And had a holiday, then went back this year, set up a company, you know, got a visa, and you know, in terms of mindset and stuff, right now I'm traveling here and leaving my wife and kids at home, but it's short-term pain for long-term gain. You know,
They're going to join you soon, aren't they?
Say that again?
They're going to come and join you soon, aren't they?
Absolutely, of course, yeah. But it makes sense for me to come for, what I do is I come for 2 weeks, go back again. I've done that 3 times now, but we're pretty, you know, we're pretty much there, and I'm going to be here full time. And the business opportunities here are exciting. So, you know, I love the UK. I was born in the UK. I'll always spend time there. But for me and my personal journey, things weren't adding up, you know, for the first time in years. So I had to make a change. I was prepared to move halfway across the world to make that change. So that's what I did.
But that makes you truly unstoppable, doesn't it? And tell me about the retreats. What retreats are you running? Oh, I'd like to run a retreat. I reckon I can come over and help you with some of this at some point.
More than welcome. So yeah, look, you know what I'm doing now is one of the many things over here, but being a business owner of 22 years, and learning everything I've learned. We talked earlier about, you know, if you've got the right person involved, then you can skip years and years of learning because you've got that direct support, you know. So what I do now is I help other business owners, help them break through, whatever that bottleneck is, and invite them out to Dubai to get out of their 9 to 5, you know, as in they're working 9 to 5, their business. Come over and join me and a host of different, you know, high level coaches, people who are doing hundreds of millions in some cases. And then we do 4 full days. So we do sort of your traditional coaching classroom based stuff. But we're doing stuff, we're going to take them out into the desert and do a coaching session in the desert. Take them out on a boat in front of the Atlantis at the Palm on sunset and do a coaching session there. Our VIP packages, we take them out in supercars for a day, driving around Dubai, so Lamborghinis and Ferraris, and then we take them to a supercar showroom and get coaching from a supercar showroom owner, and a variety of other stuff. You know, we've got a pool party networking event. I was talking to a guy who books comedians today, and we were looking at actually, you know, as a sort of a bit of a break on one of the evenings, having some, you know, sort of comedians who are like live at the Apollo style comedians.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So for me, there's actually a big growth in retreats in general, right from the UK to other places in the world. There's lots of people doing them, and I looked at it and I thought, how can I do this differently? So where else can you go into the desert and be coached during like a traditional evening meal? Where else, as part of that package, can you go and drive some supercars and then have a videographer and a photographer do some branding with you as part of the retreat? Where else can you get coaching from people from 4 different countries who have all, turned over hundreds of millions of pounds? And then I bring all of that stuff together, and that's the retreat.
Amazing. And I was lucky enough to go to Thailand actually on a business retreat earlier on in the year, and we're going to be at the same one next year, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
Really looking forward to, but I'm making more of a holiday out of it this time as well, so I'm really super excited for that. But anyway, my lovely, we have to finish now because, believe it or not, we have been 45 minutes.
Okay. Do like that.
So thank you so much for coming on. I've really enjoyed speaking to you and getting to know you a little bit more. Thank you for everyone that's been watching. And as always, I will obviously put this video on Instagram, but I'll also upload it to my YouTube channel, which is Millerside Therapy and Coaching, where you can see all my interviews on there, including my client testimonial interviews as well. So thank you all very much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again when I have another guest for you on my Become Unstoppable series. Thanks everybody, and have a great day, morning, evening, wherever you are in the world. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Sharon.